is a live stream. So what I'll do, I'll introduce you and then.
Yeah, my video is on, okay?
Today we'll be having a topic, very important topic, human trafficking. And you are all welcome for this topic today. And it will be taught by Dr. M. Mahalingam. He has done his PhD on intentional labor, and ever since he has been publishing, teaching, and he's a resource person on migration and diaspora. And he has been teaching for previous batch also, and today he kindly agreed to teach. So welcome, Dr. Mahalingam, and over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sahu, for this nice and brief introduction. I'm very glad to be taking class for this session as well. I took the last session on different units, but today we are going to discuss about, human trafficking. The unit number is 53, and which is part of course 5, Indian diaspora, political, economic, and policy aspects in block 3, which is role of NGOs in diaspora, civil society, and human rights. So I like to know, like, for example, there are 7 participants, and this is my first class. Let me just have a brief introduction from each one of you. That will be great for me, to discuss this topic further. So just start one by one. Can you just unmute and just introduce us for a brief introduction, like your name and where do you belong and from where you have logged in? That's all. Yes. Go ahead, Nirmal. Nirmal is there, and Shahana is there. So one by one, please unmute and speak to me. Sudesh and also
Yeah,
Nom
sir.
Yeah.
I'm Swadesh
Yes.
Parikpanla, speaking
Okay.
from Telangana.
Okay,
I'm
Telangana.
a trade unionist now. I registered
Okay.
a trade union, Pravasi Mitra
Yeah. That's
Labor
what
Union.
I think you came to the last class as well. I think I can recall your name. I don't know, but somehow, maybe we talked to each other last time. I think I don't know where. Yes. Okay, Swadesh. Thank you for
Yeah.
introduction. Now, next,
Thank
Nirmal.
you, sir.
Nirmal.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon. My name is Nirmal. I am
Hmm.
from Kerala. I have completed Masters in History from Pondicherry University.
Okay.
That's all about me.
Okay. Thank you, Nirmal, for your brief introduction. And Nang Tobam. Yeah.
Good evening, sir. I'm Nongkamam Ziten. I'm from Manipur, and I'm
Yeah.
working at university. Thank you.
Okay. Good. Next, Sahana.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Actually, I'm from Uttar Pradesh, and presently I'm doing PhD from Tata Institute of Social Sciences. I'm working on internal migration in India.
Okay, it is Mumbai or it is Patna, Hyderabad? Which one? I mean, Patna to is no longer. So
Yeah, it is
which
Mumbai
one?
actually. It is Mumbai.
Okay,
Yes.
you're logging in from Mumbai, or you are like you've done your coursework and now you're doing your field work. Where, I mean, what level? Like your PhD is what level it has reached?
So actually, I'm right now. I'm in Mumbai only. I have completed my fieldwork, and my fieldwork was also in Mumbai. So presently,
Okay.
I'm writing my chapters.
Okay.
This-
So anybody else? Or I mean, like only 3-4 people. What about others? Like, okay. So now I think let's get into our class. Thank you. And for a nice introduction. So I myself, Dr. Mahalingam, as Sahu pointed out, I have been working on diaspora and migration. Actually, my topic for my PhD thesis was on the Indian diaspora in Malaysia. I looked at the social movements within the diaspora. Okay, so actually, today I'm discussing about human trafficking, which is a very global issue and also global concern, and also it's a global phenomenon. So, which I'm going to we are going to unpack. What is human trafficking, definition of human trafficking, the factors which are the causes for human trafficking, and also we are going to analyze what steps have been taken by the respective governments in various countries to stop this human trafficking. Human trafficking is a global, I think my slide is, yeah. Just give me a minute. Yes, yeah, it's moving. Can you see my slide? Can you all see my slide? Yeah, should be. It's a global phenomenon and a global concern because of its given increasing growing volume and its implications. So it's not a new practice. It's a very traditional practice which was in practice in various countries. In, for example, China, Egypt, Mesopotamia, even in India, the Greeks, but not the way it is practiced today, but there was a form of human trafficking because in those days, slavery, slavery and slavery is a part of, one of the part of this human trafficking, So before going further, see, I want to say that human trafficking is not only a traditional practice, it is a new, it's not only a new phenomenon, it's also a traditional practice which has been, there in various countries. But less than 200 years ago, the British, the French, the Spanish, and the other European powers, they practiced slavery, the anti-slave law came into being in 1865. Until then, this kind of slavery was in practice, which also led to human trafficking. For example, the endangered phase in India, the colonial migration, there was human trafficking as well, because there was huge demand for unskilled laborers in various colonies of the British Empire. So there was a human trafficking. Though the migrants were taken by the British government officially, even there were a lot of incidents of human trafficking from the southern part of India, as well as from the northern part of India. The laborers, the unskilled laborers were trafficked for, endangered labor in various parts of the British Empire. So like we have a lot of examples. And also the advancement of communication technologies, transport technologies have led to human trafficking very smooth, because there's a lot of network, between different countries, and they're very active, to to initiate this human trafficking process in a very smooth way. Now, they're very organized and also well, strategized to indulge in human trafficking, because of this technology also has favored human trafficking in large number. Then apart from that, human trafficking occurs within a country. It's not only an external phenomenon. Human trafficking also happens within the countries, internal as well as external. So that's why it happens in both ways. Okay, but we have to understand it. Mostly we think, oh, human trafficking is external, but human trafficking is also, it's internal. So let me know, am I audible or you're able to follow my class, because it's an online class. So I like to know this, Nirmal or anybody, just Sahana, anybody, can you follow me, or am I audible? Please let me know. Okay.
Yes, sir. It's completely fine. We can hear.
Yeah, and also I will be asking you questions. I'll be asking you all people questions, and I'll be just checking your progress also. Whenever I complete first, you can say a kind of first subtitle. Then when I move to next one, then I'll be asking you a few questions. You have to answer me, but then only I will know that you are just following my class. That is very important. Even if you learn little thing, but learn with understanding. That is very important. So far I've said, I made 2 points I made. It's not only a new practice, it is a traditional practice. And also I said about, even in ancient period, there were countries like India, Greece, and also China, Egypt. Where there was a practice of slavery, all that. Then also I talked about the colonial period where endangered laborers were, trafficked to the British Empire by various agents. So that's what I said. And also I said the present era, it has assumed at a larger level because of the advancement of transport and communication technologies. That's the point I made. The next point I made was human trafficking is not only refers to external migration or external irregular migration, but also it is internal. Also internally, also it happens. So human trafficking can be categorized as irregular migration, or also illegal migration and undocumented migration. You can just club it in this category. And why they are trafficked, what these people who are all trafficked, and also what the victims, why they are trafficked. The victims of trafficking can be found in various industries, like, for example, fisheries, brothels, farms and homes, restaurants, for various tasks. For example, mostly women and children and also men, all categories or all age groups were trafficked because of the huge demand for this unskilled laborers, and also, you know, um, other, for example, the growing economy demands this kind of people to involve in various sectors of the economy for doing odd jobs. And also, see, that's what it violates international national laws, and also undermines universally recognized various human rights instruments. It also violation of, it's a transnational crime. And also, I'm going to tell you the next thing, the definition of human trafficking, and also I'm going to tell you the difference between trafficking and smuggling. Okay, so it's a transnational crime which is individuals and various groups are involved. Not only it's a big organized network which is behind this human trafficking. The groups like, for example, Snakeheads of China, they're very well-known human trafficking group in China, and also Yakuza of Japan as another big trafficking network which is existing, operating in Japan, and also the Russian mafias are classic examples. Apart from that, in Indian case, you have many agents, many groups are very active. I think we'll discuss about Indian case later. So now I'm just introducing topic. So human trafficking is a severe threat to nation state because it undermines the governance, territorial integrity. Territorial integrity also is under threat, and also it fuels society's instability as well, because of these illegal migrants who come in, they create law and order problem. So political instability, society's instability, social disorder, all that. In the light of the above, the states have today engaged in counter trafficking, initiatives. Many states have initiated to control this human trafficking measures, given the implications. Okay, human trafficking is a hidden practice, very tough to analyze, to find out. It's a very hidden practice. It's not open. It's not explicit. Okay, it's very tough to assess and analyze the impact of the implication of human trafficking. Still, we don't have a data how many are trafficked, and all those things are very strange. It's very tough to collect. Okay, so but anyway, we are going to discuss about this phenomenon in a detailed way in the coming. I'm going to discuss further. So this is what I'm introducing this topic. This is what little introduction about human trafficking. Let me check with you all. So let me just throw up some questions, and let me get reply from you whether you understood what what I've been trying to tell you, all that. Okay, yeah. Now the first question I want to ask Sahana, you're there, I think. Sahana, just tell me. Sahana, say hello to me.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me, Sahana, for example, I said human trafficking. Human trafficking is not a new practice. It's a old traditional practice. Can you explain this statement? How will you justify this statement?
So it means like it's not prevalent in today's world, but it's during the British era and before the British era also, people were trafficked from one place to another place. When we say during British era, the example can be the indentured laborers and the laborers who were coming from different parts of India, who are going from different parts of India to UK or Africa in form of laborers. And when I'm saying before British era, it could be in the form of slavery. And when I'm talking about the present era, so I think we can count beggars as well, because many of the beggars who are trafficked from inside the India from different states as well. So they are trafficked from different states in modern. This is the example of modern trafficking.
Yeah, that's fine. And I like to know from Sudesh. Sudesh, just hand is up. Sudesh, are you there? Sudesh.
Yeah, sir. Good evening.
Yeah. Tell me, I want to know where the victims of trafficked persons are employed. Usually where they're employed, what they do. Okay, that's what I just gave the places where they are employed after trafficking. So where they are employed, where the
Sir,
trafficked
it's a
people are
forceful
employed.
labor. Yeah.
Huh?
It's a forceful labor kind of thing. people migrate to one state to other state. And
Yeah, human
from Telangana.
trafficking is human trafficking is there because for two reasons. One for sexual exploitation,
Yeah,
other one is for forced labor.
forced
Two.
labor.
Yeah, these two things mainly, okay, they are
Yes, sir.
employed, but generally they're employed in fisheries, brothels, farms and homes, shops, work sites. As Sahana pointed out, they were beggars, street beggars,
Yes,
So I think
yes.
we're going to discuss all that. So anyway, I'm just checking. So human trafficking, I'm just
Yeah.
asking you, I'm asking Nirmal, human trafficking is an external or internal phenomenon or both? I'm just checking, Nirmal. Nirmal?
So there
Yeah.
are both internal as well as external traffic.
Yes, it's a internal as well as external. So human trafficking means both. Internally also happens and externally also happens. But the internal things are more, and also now the external things also becoming increasing because of the development of transport, communication, and also the easing of the border control has come down. I mean, the borders are little relatively free, and also there's a huge demand for laborers, unskilled laborers in various countries. Okay, that's what we are going to discuss further. So now coming to, thank you for all your responses. I hope you all following me well, and I think I'm also audible to you. Okay, so now definition meanings of human trafficking.
So
What
I
is
have a
yeah, yes, go
I
ahead,
have
Sahana.
I have a question in the sense, when we say human trafficking is a kind of illegal migration, these are illegal migrants.
Yes.
So when we see the domestic workers who are going from India to Gulf countries, usually they take documents, they apply for visa, they follow the legal process. But somehow when they reach at the destination, they get into or they trapped into this domestic work where their documents also snatched by the owner of the house or their owners. So will they consider as a like in which category they will come? Like they will consider as a human traffic people or they will come under documented migrants?
See, you can say that, based on, for example, some people they go to Gulf through agents, okay?
Yes, sir.
Those people cannot be considered as illegal migrants, but they're undocumented migrant. But there are some cases they go through trafficking channel. The agents will just somehow they will go by tourist visa. The traffickers they'll take them to tourist visa or some illegal means. They reach that place, and also they'll be sold to some no or they'll be working for some servant matlab, employers. So they come under both the category, illegal as well as undocumented migrants, both. So there are various ways. See, that's why I'm going to explain. Smuggling is different from the human trafficking. Okay, that I'll explain later. But Abhitak, I got your question, but when I try to explain further, it'll be clear for you. I think now also very clear to you. For example, some people they go to Gulf through agents, like they give documents to the agent and they'll take them. But where they go after reaching there, the documents will be taken over by the employers. They'll become undocumented migrants. But there are other people, they just even for traveling, they'll use human trafficking channel. They reach there and they'll be given to the employers by the traffickers. So they become both illegal and also undocumented migrants. There are different categories among the this kind of people. Yes. Is it clear, Sahana, what I'm trying to explain?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So human trafficking has been defined. See, there are official definitions given by, for example, United Nations, trafficking protocol. It all clearly defines what is human trafficking. Okay, let me quote. I'm just quoting it from the, UN definition. I'm quoting it. The recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of person using the threat or use of force or other forms of coercion or abduction of fraud and deception, of the abuse of power or a position of vulnerability, or the giving or receiving of payments or benefits to achieve the consent of a person having control over another person for exploitation. Exploitations can include, at a minimum, the exploitation of the prostitution of others or other forms of sexual exploitation, forced labor or services, slavery or practices similar to slavery, servitude or the removal of organs. Okay, so trafficking, this is what UN definition it says, suppose the recruitment itself, not legal, and also transportation, transfer of and harboring a receipt of a person there in destination country, and also using the threat or use of force or other forms of coercion, of abduction, of fraud, of deception, of the abuse of power or a position of vulnerability, or the giving or receiving of payments. So these are the factors, or these things can be summed up as a human trafficking. Okay, which means from the starting, from the process to the end, it's not done legally, and also using force, threat, and also by just taking money from both the sides, or sometimes they are just abducted and they're sold to the employers. Okay, and also that's what the two kinds of exploitation, as I pointed out earlier, sexual exploitation, for that one reason. Another one is forced labor. Okay, and also a kind of servitude. The next definition is given by Palermo Protocol. Another protocol says trafficking in person as recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring or receipt of person using the threat or task, with the force or other forms of coercion or abduction, of fraud, of deception, of the abuse of power or a position of vulnerability, or giving or receiving the payments or benefit to achieve, um, the consent of a person having control over another person for exploitation. So basically, a trafficked person, always facing threat, and also she or he is under the control of the person who's trafficking them. So they're not free, from the traffickers' control or authority. They're always being coerced, and also they'll be using force, or even they don't give money. What they receive from the employers, they just take the money and they pay little. That kind of exploitation also is there in trafficking. Okay, so these two definitions will make it clear what is human trafficking. So human trafficking, where there's involvement of force, and also fraud methods, and also deception. They're not telling you clearly where they are going, for what they are going. Just they'll be abducted, taken by force, and they'll be sold to the employees, and also always under threat of the traffickers. These people, they're not free even after reaching the destination country. Okay, so they are under the influence of the traffickers. The trafficked person is always living under the influence of the traffickers, always there. I'm going to explain the difference between trafficking and smuggling now. The trafficking and smuggling looks like similarities, but they're not similar. For example, trafficking. Okay, trafficking happens both internally, externally. Okay, but smuggling is only external. External. Okay, suppose somebody is, uh, taken from India to other countries. It's called smuggling. See, there are three occasions or three situations where these trafficking and smuggling, they differ from each other. For example, see, the smuggling is related to crossing international borders, unlike human trafficking, which is both internal as well as external. The next is the difference between trafficking and smuggling will become apparent only after arriving at the destination country. Okay, you'll come to know whether was it a smuggling or was it a trafficking. The smuggled victims are free to leave, look for better options after they arrive in the destination country. But in the traffic case, they are not left free. That is what different. Second difference. The third difference is that's what the legal status of the trafficked and smuggled person in the destination country is different. Okay, maybe smuggled person will become legal, but the trafficked person will not become illegal in that destination country. So both look similar, but they're not similar because of these characteristics. Okay, so the trafficked person is always under the influence of the trafficker. Okay, in the case of smuggler, once the person reaches, the destination country, he or she is left free by the smugglers. Okay, so there, see, actually, I can explain the difference now. I mean, I have a list with me, the difference, I have a table, the difference between smuggling and trafficking. For example, trafficking, force is used, consent is obtained through force or fraud, deception. But in the case of smuggling, they say they are smuggled because the cooperation of the person. Okay, so force or used, okay, are obtained. The consent is obtained through fraud, deception. But in the case of smuggling, no, the person is willing to go, but you using this this option to go out of the country. Next is forced labor and exploitation in the trafficking. But in the case of smuggling, there is generally there is no coercion in the case of smuggling process. Persons trafficked are victims, but here persons smuggled or violating the law. By law, they are not victims. By law, they are not victims because that person willingly, adopting this route to reach another country. Okay, so there is a cooperation. That's what. Then next is in the case of trafficking, enslaved. The trafficking persons are enslaved, subjected to limited movement or isolation. Okay, but in the here, smuggled persons are let free once they reach the destination country. Okay, need not involve any actual or physical movement of the victim, but here the under the case of smuggling, facilitates the illegal entry of person, but there is no force on them. So but in the case of human trafficking, I said it happens both internally, externally. But in the case of smuggling, it only happens external movement. Okay, but illegal movement. Okay, that is what you can say the difference between the smuggling and the trafficking. Okay, now coming to the factors, the causes which are for the human trafficking. First is poverty. You can look at the slide. A lack of education, the demand for cheap labor and sex, lack of human rights protections, lack of legitimate economic opportunities in their living country or the birth country, cultural factors also human. For example, in Africa, there's a cultural tradition. I don't understand how this tradition is practiced, but there's a tradition of cultural tradition in African countries for trafficking, conflict, and natural disaster, lack of safe migration, deception, and intimidation, and also for profit. Okay, these are the causes for this human trafficking. Factors or causes for human trafficking, legal or illegal migration is driven by push and pull factors. So what is the push factor? What is the you know I'll discuss about that. What are the push factors? For example, government is not providing opportunities. There were no increasing economic inequality, political conflict, social unrest, social inequality. The pull factor is opportunities and also immigration, hassle-free entry. Okay, push factors are maybe opportunities, good income, better than the place where they're born. So that kind of reasons. So the push and pull factors both are playing out for the human trafficking. The other elements are the male population over the age of 60, and also the digital connectivity also today has increasing human trafficking. Other factors also, the connectivity is good, so the human trafficking also has increased. That is what they say, the factors. Okay, then types. The United Nations divides human trafficking into three categories: sex trafficking, labor trafficking, and sexual exploitation of children. Okay, these three things are three kinds of trafficking. I mean, the trafficking is carried out for these three reasons. Okay, so that is what the other factors. Then coming to we'll discuss that sex trafficking, labor trafficking. Okay, we'll explain that a little bit. For example, according to Geneva, 50 million people living in modern slavery in 2021, according to global estimates. It's also kind of slavery, trafficking, because the trafficked persons, they don't have freedom. Their rights are violated. They are living in a very pathetic conditions. It's a kind of slavery. Okay, the sex trafficking also, countless thousands of victims lack protection from exploitation. Someone has to be held responsible for this. So this sexual exploitation is very common. I mean, like, the women are victims of this one, and also children these days. Okay, many countries where children are used for sex trade. For example, in Sri Lanka, Thailand, these countries also, there is sex tourism also. Okay, now there are different perspectives which are trying to explain the phenomenon of human trafficking. Okay, migration perspective, development perspective, market or business perspective, globalization perspective, criminal justice perspective, you know, and also human rights perspective, not human resource, human rights perspective. So coming to the human migration perspective. So what is this perspective? Anyone from this class can tell me what is the meaning of perspective? What do you mean by perspective? Anyone from this class, can you explain to me what is the meaning of perspective? What is the meaning of perspective? Zaya Nair from Kuwait, or anyone? So this is there. Nomdom, Jitin. What is the meaning of perspective? Perspective means standpoint. Perspective means standpoint. Okay, clear point of view. Hello, Nirmal, are you there?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Yeah. So what is the meaning of perspective, Nirmal? I said point
Sir,
of view.
point of view.
Yeah. And also standpoint. So these perspectives are explaining the phenomenon called human trafficking. For example, migration's perspective says human trafficking is nothing but migratory movement between origin and destination countries. So migration and human trafficking are closely related to each other. Okay, human traffic is byproduct of migration. Human trafficking combines both internal as well as external migration. Undocumented or irregular migrants are likely victims of human trafficking. Please understand. See, undocumented and illegal migrants, they became the victims of human trafficking also. Okay, and also the because of why this is happening, because there's a huge demand for the labor shortage in those developed countries. So this migration, pull, which attracts human trafficking. Okay, that's why as I said, even for example, colonial period, endangered laborers were taken by the British government officially, but still there was a lot of huge shortage of laborers. So human trafficking was another way by which in laborers were taken to various countries, Indian laborers various countries. So this migration perspective is also trying to understand how the human trafficking is, taking place. For example, they say, see, for example, the following factors such as strict immigration control, limited country quotas, ineligibility for legal entry, and labor demand. These are the factors which are you know facilitating human trafficking to take place. Okay, then development perspective is very clear. It says, the development perspective is it's very clear. That is what? That is, see, for example, socioeconomic development. Trafficking is happening because the poor socioeconomic background in the birth country, in the origin country, you know, uh, social economic inequality, the poverty, these factors, what should I say, unsustainable development, or you can say, um, uh, not balanced development, or glaring economic inequality, socio-economic inequality, and also the factor like, lack of development, backwardness. Okay, these factors also forcing people to, adopt to human trafficking by socio-economic development, and human trafficking is interconnected. The poor or economically oppressed are most prone for the human trafficking. The poor, for example, in the case of in India, the oppressed, the poor, particularly the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes. For example, you must be reading in newspapers in Delhi, and also in Bombay, many people, many girls from Jharkhand, Odisha, the tribal girls are trafficked. Recently, I was reading a news item in Times of India. In Gurgaon, a girl was brought from Jharkhand or Odisha, and she was badly treated by her employer. And an NGO found out this girl, and they just had rescued her. Okay, these kind of things, because she belonged to a scheduled tribe, and her family, just maybe they contacted an agent. He brought her to this town, and she was given to this employer, and they started exploiting her. She was not even given food. So this kind of exploitations is very common in trafficking because of poor development, socioeconomic development. Then market forces or business perspective, which is trying to understand how human trafficking takes place. For example, a trafficking network is considered a business organization. It's a lot of huge profit. You know, people make out of this human trafficking. An individual or a human trafficking network, groups, they make huge profit out of this trafficking. That's why it is happening. Okay. Then globalization perspective, which explains, for example, human traffic has increased because of in liberalization, privatization, LPG time, because of free trade, minimal state country intervention and regulation. Okay, because of this, also human trafficking has increased in today. Okay, that's also one of the reasons. Okay, globalization means what? Interconnectedness of the world for trade, for labor, you know, and also for every aspect. Today, the world is more connected in the era of globalization, which easily makes people to move back and forth, which also facilitates human trafficking. That's what. Then criminal justice perspective, which is trying to understand human trafficking, how these trafficked persons are involved, engaged in crimes. They were used for prostitution, transporting or selling drugs, intelligence gathering, trafficked arms, begging, pickpocketing, money laundering, vehicle theft. So they are used for you know used for what? These kind of illegal activities, transnational crime, or they are forced to involve by these traffickers. So traffickers have forced trafficked victims to do various criminal offenses. So that is why the human trafficking is also closely connected to this criminal activities. Then human rights perspective, not human resource perspective, human rights perspective, that is a process of enslavement. Various fundamental rights are denied to the trafficked victims. Okay, it violates their civil and political rights. For example, the right to self-dignity, right to health care, right to life, right to liberty, so right to free from all forms of slavery. So trafficking of children violates the right to grow up safe and also free from abuse and exploitation. Trafficking women leads to violation of various fundamental rights of women. Okay, so fundamental rights are in distress because of trafficking. The trafficked persons, they lack the basic fundamental human rights. They are denied. Okay, so trafficking in women. Okay, so I mean, the slides will tell you how women are, just mostly the human trafficking. Women are, easy victims. For various reasons, women are more in number than the men or children. Okay, see, trafficking cuts across age and gender. Okay, women, children, and men are the victims of human trafficking. Women and children are increasingly victims of human trafficking because of their vulnerability. They're vulnerable, and also innocence and powerlessness. Because of this, women and children are prone to, for human trafficking. For example, see, they say they are used for sexual and labor. For example, in the case of women, both sexual as well as labor exploitation, forced labor. Okay, women are more into trafficking because of family, socioeconomic issues, and also unemployment, family crisis, poverty, these factors. Okay, so because women are seen as economic liability. Okay, that's why they are really forced to involve in this kind of human trafficking. They are the victims of this. And also trafficking of young boys and girls. It's a new trend today for this, sexual trade. Okay, the child sex tourism in the countries like, for example, Mexico, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. Okay, Thailand. Object poverty is the critical factor for the trafficking of children in the West Africa. Okay, so International Labour Organization has identified two types of causes for this kind of children trafficking. One is internal factor, the other one is external factor. Because of the external factor is war, armed conflict in those countries. Children are used for, as a child soldiers, soldiers. For that's why they are trafficked. Okay, community risk factors like, for example, youth unemployment, quality of life is very poor. So these are the thing. These are the factors, external factors and internal factors. Obviously, family, socioeconomic background, all that. The trafficking of men is mainly for labor exploitation. Basically, men are, taken trafficked because of labor exploitation, construction. Also, there's huge demand for unskilled laborers in developed countries. Particularly, they don't get cheap laborers, unskilled laborers. So, from developing countries, these laborers are trafficked for developed countries. The victims of trafficking face various trauma. What kind of trauma they face? That is physical violence, verbal abuse, manipulation, and exploitation in these countries. And also, they are they are afflicted with lots of health issues, like, for example, HIV, and also reproductive inability, and also mental health issues they face. Okay, they face a lot of trauma because of this. They are unsafe situations where they are forced to live in. Okay, the trafficking in men. See, the slide shows that they're employed in various sectors of the economy, including agriculture, manufacturing, and construction sector. They undergo physical violence, verbal abuse, manipulation, and exploitation. Then global trafficking, that's what we are going to discuss case wise, country wise. Okay. For example, before going to case studies, just I want to know from you, do you have any questions, any queries to ask me so far? I just discussed about what is human trafficking, the difference between smuggling and human trafficking, and also the factors for human trafficking, and also the perspectives on human trafficking. So any doubts so far, just please feel free to ask me now. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There's one query is, uh, yes, we have discussed about this trafficking and smuggling, and
Yeah.
we have also, differentiate what is the meaning of trafficking and smuggling. But could you please enlighten me at least a little bit further about the smuggling things? Because, trafficking and smuggling, of course, it's a different thing. But to my little understanding, trafficking is very much related with the human things, that the human being, and the smuggling, how it could be related with the human smuggling. Because I'm being in born and brought up here in the border state, so
Yeah.
we have also experience of these trafficking issues as well as the smuggling issues. So when we talk of this smuggling of goods, we understand. I don't know. I haven't come through this smuggling of human beings, like, no, as you have discussed.
Yeah. There are cases like trafficking and smuggling of human beings. That's why I pointed out, smuggling means voluntarily people, they try to move out, but they could not move because due to, maybe financial issues or other reasons. So they use the channel. Smugglers, they try to help them out to reach the other country. But the smuggling, maybe they pay to the smuggler. Okay. And also it's a voluntary, movement. Okay. They're smuggled in. It means they are not got the entry legally, but they reached the destination country illegally, and also voluntarily they adopted to the channel, okay, without any force or coercion. And once they reach the destination country, they are let free by the smuggler. Okay. What is his role was just transporting them. That's all.
Okay.
Okay. So no recruitment or no force in that process, and just the smuggler's role was just to take him to that another country where he or she wanted to go. Okay, and once reaching that country, that smugglers, they leave them free, and they will become the illegal migrants or undocumented migrants in the destination country. The fate is in the hands of them. The fate is in the hands of them. But in the case of trafficked people, they just force people. They want people for their trade, so they just take them by using force, by saying deceptive methods, fraud ways. And after reaching the destination country, also the trafficked persons are under the influence of the traffickers. So that is the difference. So the exploitation level is very high in trafficking than the smuggling. That's what So relatively, smuggling is little, but you have to pay for it. You need little money. Okay, that is where that is involved. Okay, yes, Nongdam, I hope I've cleared your doubt. Now it's clear what is smuggling, what is human trafficking. But it is there in some countries because, as I said, no, because some countries you could not easily get visas, and also the borders are very tight. Immigration control is very tight. That is the reason. So maybe these are the channels. Maybe it's not very common, but there is a practice of smuggling of human beings. Yes. Can I? Is it clear? Have I enlightened you or not them?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madhavan.
Because you are in a border state. It's a very there is a practice of this. You might be knowing very well, but than me. You can you can tell me the real ground reality there. I understand.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
border states are very prone for this kind of thing. You
Yes.
must study. You must work on this human
Yes.
trafficking in your state is bordering Burma and all, particularly Thailand, Burma. These are routes for the human trafficking. Hmm? So you must work on this topic. It's very interesting. So anybody else has doubt before I'm going to teach other case studies like Africa and also other Asia, like for example Indian case studies. So now is the concept is clear to you? Human trafficking, smuggling, see, human trafficking can be understood from these perspectives, from migration perspective, from the point of view of criminal justice system, by the point of globalization perspective, from development perspective. You can easily understand or unpack the meaning of human trafficking. That's what these things. So is it clear, Swadesh or Vijaya or Sahana? I hope you're all there. Sahana, are you there?
Yeah,
Good evening, sir.
yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, Vijaya is there. And I mean, who said good
Yes,
evening?
yes, I'm
Vijaya?
here.
Okay.
Sir, I have a question
Yeah.
regarding human trafficking. Just now you were explaining about smuggling and human trafficking.
Yeah.
We understood that concept, but this, I'm not sure this is related or not, but I just have a doubt regarding in some countries you said visas are like they don't get visas. In such cases, like they fake the visa, like they get married and then they take those people over there and then they just leave, or they use for some other thing, other purposes. So that
Yeah.
also will be considered as a human trafficking.
Why not? Because that's what human trafficking. If you look at the definition, deceptive way, fraud
They are
ways.
taking legally, no sir. When
Huh?
they're getting they are taking those people with the like they are marrying and taking.
That's what. See, you have to understand. Maybe I'll tell you, it's a form of human trafficking, but not really. It comes under human trafficking because trafficked person is not free, even after reaching the destination country. The trafficker will always influence on their life in the sense of the level of exploitation, or they just they always keep using their force and threat on them for exploitation, for whatever they are taken for. For example, somebody's trafficked, and he'll be sold to an employer without any documents, and he'll be like a slave without any rights. Okay. And that is called human trafficking. But this maybe a kind of human trafficking, but I don't think so. Somebody is just marrying and going there and leaving them back. I mean, leaving in the lurch, leaving left behind. That is not the case. I don't think so. But if you can say that, because you're saying that they're going legally, they're having visa, and but he's married and go. But I don't think so. Will come under human trafficking. I don't think so, Vijaya, because if you look at the definition, of course, only one thing is there, maybe deceptive way of taking them there, but it's not a human trafficking, because the traffic victim will be under the influence, under the force of, always in the force of what, they're not free even after reaching destination country. The trafficker will have a say in the life of the trafficked person. That's all. Yeah.
Okay,
Vijaya?
in that case also, in such case also, like example, like someone who's marrying Indian woman, and he will take to his country, but there he is not giving her the rights as a wife, but he is using her as a maid or for some other purpose, and he is keeping her in their own house. That
Yeah.
in that case also will be like it is also a kind of trafficking, no, sir?
Yeah, that case, because you're saying that she's not given the, freedom to move, or she's being exploited. She lacks all those rights which that the other person
And
enjoy.
most of the like if you see in US and other countries and even in
Yeah.
GCC, this is happening.
Yeah. It's a global issue. It's a global concern. I said in the beginning, no doubt. That's what even the Saudi Arabian prince has donated huge money to the UN bodies to stop this human trafficking, or to make the surveillance very strong. I'm going to discuss that later. But you're right. It's a very global issue. It's a big global issue, human trafficking, because of it's easy travel and connectivity, which has really improved, facilitated the human trafficking. Today the volume has increased, the human trafficking, because of the political instability. For example, Ukraine conflict, there's so many issues, like human trafficking. Imagine, it's a tremendous, from that country, they want to flee the country. So the human traffickers will be watching this, the victim, they will be just taking the people, they use this channel to leave or to reach other places. So the human traffickers, they throw the net to get a good catch from Ukraine and all now, where they are facing political crisis. So that's what I agree with you. It's a global issue. It's a global concern, all that. Thank you, Vijaya. And what about Sahana? You have any questions?
No, sir.
Yeah. So now I'm going to discuss few case studies that, for example, Africa, the trafficking is very common. Okay. In South African whole continent, whether from south to north or from east to west, all the countries, they have this human trafficking issue internally and also externally. African countries are destination countries for trafficked people, and also transit point to move into different countries. The whole Africa is afflicted with human trafficking. The very recent underdeveloped, okay, and also the political instability. Okay, so these are and also cultural factor. It seems there is a long tradition of trafficking, because of this society. This African societies are very unstable. They're afflicted with various socio-economic, ethnic conflicts. So trafficking is I think, household problem there. It's a very common, in African continent. See, trafficking happens in all the regions of Africa. For example, trafficking is recognized as a problem, as a social problem in more than 70% of the central and also north, east, also, Western African countries. Okay. Every country, name it. Okay. They have this human trafficking problem because of the border, closed borders, landlocked, a lot of issues in these kind of, countries. Okay, so in case of Eastern Africa, I don't want to go in detail, but if you read on there's a lot of literature on human trafficking in African continents. All this, I don't want to go very factual, like reading out country wise and But I just said in overview, the human trafficking is a very common problem in all these countries. For example, to cite a few examples, the trafficking of women for commercial and sexual exploitation from different parts of Africa. Okay, women, children, men, they are taken for labor and sexual exploitation to particularly Europe. Europe may is very common. So now coming to Asia, coming to coming to Asia, like for example, in the context of Asian Pacific region, okay, particularly in China, India, Pakistan, Thailand are considered significant for trafficking. For example, in Indian case, we get Nepali girls, women, laborers, and also from Bangladesh, okay, and also tribal, the children from the Odisha, and also other Jharkhand, these backward developed states, they were thrown for human trafficking, particularly women and children, okay, in Pakistan, and also Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, in Asian region. For example, Nepali girls between 1,60,000 and 2,50,000 are forced to work in India's brothels. Indian brothels are receiving young girls from Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and internal trafficking is a problem in India, according to an NGO report. Indian National Human Rights Commission's report. So there are reports which are available about human trafficking. You can read it. Maybe you can use it as evidence for the Indian case. Same thing happens in China and also in other parts of the Asian region. So trafficking is a global issue. It happens across the countries around the globe. For example, Europe, you take the case of Europe, which is known for human trafficking because of, European, like you can say different countries. And also, for example, see human traffic occurs across European Union. Okay, mainly from east to west and south to north direction for sexual and labor exploitation, Central Europe or Eastern Europe or Northern Europe. So the whole European Union is suffering from this kind of human trafficking issues. Okay, there's a lot of initiatives to control this global movement of, people illegally by the traffickers. Now, other forms of human trafficking, apart from sexual and also for labor, forced labor. Other one is for organ, organ for organs, organs trafficking for organs, and also child trafficking for armed conflicts. Today there are so many armed conflicts where they need child soldiers. So there is a lot of demand for child soldiers in, for example, maybe you can take Afghanistan, wherever, even Sri Lanka, wherever the armed conflicts are there, the children are being used as child soldiers. The next is for organs, for example, in India, it seems people sell their organs because you get money and they are trafficked for these organs are, for example, heart, eyes. They have great demand in developed countries. So there is a trafficking for organs, but not much large scale, but there are trafficking for organs as well. Okay, studies have found many organ sellers in India are women, and in some cases, the kidnap. They may be kidney. The kidney may be sold to pay for the dowry for a daughter's wedding. So, according to International Organization Migration Report, organ trafficking has been on the rise in Southeast Asia, particularly in China and other countries such as Cambodia, Vietnam, Indonesia, these countries where organ trafficking is becoming very common. So, okay. So, based on, for example, even for women are also, for example, in China, it seems 40% of men, 40 million men in China will be looking for wives. So now there is a lot of trafficking of women from Vietnam to China for marriage. Okay, so this is happening this part of the world. Then what are the preventive steps, taken by, the countries, So there are a lot of, prevention measures are being adopted by different countries. For example, United Arab Emirates General Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, granted $50 million to help for launching a united global initiative against human trafficking. Okay, so he has given the funds to stop this human trafficking in the Gulf region or all over the world. So there is a body, there's a program, United Nations Global Initiative to fight human trafficking was launched. Okay. Likewise, there are so many programs launched by UN and various international organizations for migration bodies, which are closely watching this, human trafficking by taking various steps. For example, the global bodies like the the Free the Slaves, ILO, IOM, the International Center for Migration Policy Development, and also High Commissioner for Human Rights, United Nations Educational and Scientific Cultural Organization, UNICEF, and also UNIFEM, okay, United Nations for High Commissioner for Refugees, okay, and also Save the Children or proactive bodies which are coming up with a lot of strategies to stop this global, human trafficking, and also countries. Each countries they have a trafficking policies to control internal trafficking. But in India, I don't think so. There's much development to stop this human trafficking because it's a hidden act. It's very tough to figure out, assess the volume and also the issues involved in it. But we keep reading in the newspaper about this kind of issues. So I think there is still we need to think and revisit the human trafficking strategies in our country, particularly in India. But this is what I just stop here, and I'll just take up the floor is open for questions because it's a human rights area. Many of you can just work on this, and also it's a new dimensions have to be developed and looked into it, to understand the human trafficking. It's a very it's an emerging issue, but at the same time, we need much scholarship, to understand the human trafficking. That's what my, reflection on this human trafficking. Now the floor is open for question and answer. So I hope you understood. I mean, I gave you an overview about what is human trafficking and with the case studies like South Africa and Asia and also Europe. These are the main destination. For example, in the case of Canada, USA, even they have this problem, but not much in comparison with these regions like Africa, Europe, Asia, and Pacific regions. Okay, of course, in US, like Mexico border between Mexico and US, there's a lot of human trafficking, but US is very strict, and also surveillance system is very strong. Okay, that's what. So let me just stop here. The floor is open for question and answer session. I think you have some questions to ask me. Yes, go ahead. Hello. Yes. No questions. Clear? Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, you are audible, but I think, okay, any questions? Sweathers is working on similar issues, the wage theft and all,
Who,
very
ma'am? Who?
challenging issue. And Vijay, you have any comments?
Yeah, acha, Vijay. Okay. Vijay asked me some questions before. Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll close because I think they have no questions.
Sagana is working on internal migration. Sagana, you can also include this human trafficking component in your research.
Yes, sir, sure.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
I think
yes.
this lecture might have given you some idea to just explore whether human trafficking also, part of your research maybe, because what is exactly your topic of your PhD?
I'm looking migrants who are coming from UP to Mumbai, and
Okay.
so they are carrying a different specific identity, like they come from the Bhaiya land, and how they get it taxi occupation with this identity. And so this is one major objective, how with this identity how they cope up, especially when we are seeing from 2006 what is happening, migrants in Mumbai, how so is with this identity how they are integrating in their neighborhood, in the workforce as well, in taxi occupation. So this is the first objective. And the secondly, I'm looking after the penetration of gig economy like Ola and Uber, how these drivers are trying to cope up with the penetration of Ola and Uber, whether the Kali Pili drivers, the black and yellow taxi drivers are dying or they are adopting a different strategy to overcome from this phenomena, from this crisis, actually, the crisis of gig economy. So this traditional kind of taxi occupation driver, how they are coping up with this crisis. And
and also you can include this aspect also, whether they are trafficked or not, you will find out, just you can also have one question in your questionnaire about this, whether
yes,
how
sir.
they come to Mumbai, like, because there be a, that will be a good insight into your research. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, sir, of course. Sir, for a few months, I worked with beggars as well. So I was working on a project. It's a project name is Koshish. So, I used to go field work and I used to be in the beggars home as well as a research officer. So I was talking and trying to understand their opinion. So many of these beggars, there are some beggars who are in inter-country migrants as well, like women, as you said, Nepali women and the Bangladeshi women, they are also in begging occupation. Begging, actually. Yeah.
No, see, I want to say, Sakana, tell me now, see, I gave you lecture for an hour. So what are the takeaway points? Like how you just can you give me 3-4 points, like what you have learned from this lecture? That'll be really good for me also, to maybe to improve further, what are the takeaways from my lecture for your
One thing,
research? Yeah.
overall, I can say, like, I was not aware, or I was not able to differentiate what is the difference between smuggling and trafficking. So now I can say, I can define, I can explain to others, yes, this is the difference between smuggling and trafficking. And somehow I knew, this is what trafficking is, but I was not aware of every aspect of trafficking. Somehow you explain different aspects as well. What are the things we can include in trafficking and what are the things we cannot include in trafficking? What are the aspects of smuggling? This is another thing, I guess, like you explained the point of view of trafficking. We can see the trafficking through migration, lens of migration. We can see trafficking through the lens of human rights. We can see the trafficking through the lens of economic development and globalization as well.
Yeah, good. Thank you so much. Now I want to know, at least, my lecture should benefit you. Like at least it should add some value to your, knowledge. That's what I want to know. Thank you for your feedback, Sagana. Thank you so much. I hope the same thing from everybody, Nirmal or Nangdom, Jitin, Vijaya also from Kuwait, Swadesh also. I think Swadesh should tell us. Swadesh is working on Pravesi Mitra Labor Union. Swadesh, can you just enlighten me about what problem, like what kind of work you are doing with this union, Pravesi Mitra Labor Union? Do you stop labor trafficking also? Swadesh is there online? I don't know. Let's see. Let's check.
Yeah, sir, I am here. I'm listening seriously to a
Okay.
class.
Tell me, Swadesh, how far your union is working on this human trafficking thing?
Yeah, sir, it's a trafficking in Gulf especially, and Odisha to Telangana.
Okay.
Bricklane workers, we are looking some cases, forced labor. If it is 8 hours work, they will take 12 hours work. Why? Because they paid advancedly amount to that migrant workers coming to the destinations. That is the same way in Gulf Basin, women trafficking, women moving for domestic work, there will be. And still many people are missing our Telanganites in GCC. There is no chance to trace out by the destination governments also.
So it's good to know about that. Your trade union body is working on that, but it'll be really, I want to be in touch with you just to write something, further on human trafficking, particularly, to Gulf countries from your end. So this, I think, I'll get you a contact number from Dr. Sahu. Then maybe we can work on a paper on, human trafficking from India to Gulf countries and the issues and challenges, all that. Okay? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. to this.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mahalingam. Let's conclude now. And
Yeah.
thank you everybody for attending and participating in the question answer also. So we'll see again all of you in the next Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, I'd like to thank all the participants and also students. Please, you have to have a probing question and keep asking questions. Then it'll be good for your research. You'll get solutions also. And my best wishes to all of you in this course. And keep coming, keep logging in and learning. Also, it will help you to improve your research. Thank you. Sahana is raising her hand. Yes, Sahana.
So can we have your email ID? So
Yeah, I will just drop my email ID in the chat box. So you
Dr.
can all-
Mahalingam is there in your group. You can even, email in your group. He's there.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
take
in the
care.
group. Yes, I'm in the group also. You can just email me or you can just drop a message, Sagana. And
Yes,
also, I just thank every participants for joining in. Thank you so much.